Dalit will present her presentation about, I think, the quality of the neighborhood and her methodology. And after we have some brief break for the coffee, and we have to continue at 12:30 with the presentation online of the FTSM team. Kritika, I've met, they did short mission, I think it was in June, in Italy, in the University of Salerno, and they will be online also with the supervisor. So they will share with us their experience about the short-term mission. So they confirm that they will be online at cost. So you will receive David's presentation, coffee break, and at cost we continue. So after lunch, we continue with our presentation that will be about the FTM that will be developed, and we finish with Edmund's presentation that is more according the GIS, and we keep working in the afternoon on the GIS students. Welcome, Dalit.
Thank you. You can hear me, yes? Okay, so thank you very much and good morning. And I feel more, now after yesterday, I feel more like it's an intimate presentation that you can ask me questions through the presentation. It's like a continuous from yesterday. So I would like to talk about the evaluation of the quality and performance of the built environment, which is what I'm doing for the last decade, even before. And when we're looking at cities today, you see that the complexity, I mean, most of the cities has been going through a big change along the years. And especially if we're looking at Hong Kong, we see it's 1994, and today, of course, it's different. And when we're looking at each cities and we're talking about quality and performance, we can see by the eyes that is very difficult to measure it, to evaluate it. It's very complex, and a lot of topics, issues, aspects are coming in between. So the main issue that I was thinking of is first how, when I'm looking at a city and I would like to analyze its quality and its performance is how to do it, how to analyze it, how to measure, what parameter should we measure. It's not this aspect, for my opinion, is very complex. I would like to see 3-4 slides that going back to understand where we start, when and where we started to analyze the built environment. And from my point of view, the first analytic map was Nuli's map. Do you know her? No one knows the Nuli maps? The architects knows Nuli maps, I think. You don't know her? It's from, you can see it here. It was done in 1748 by, I won't say his first name, by Nuli, that he wanted to understand one issue in Rome, the density issue. I mean, how dense is Rome? But he was looking for a method to do it, for an analysis method to do it, and he decided to color in black all the private area and to leave in white all the public area. The public area, which meaning not only the streets and the piazzas, all the areas where the public can get inside, which are also inside the holy places, and you see many of them in Rome. So we get a map which is like public and private. By the way, we talked about it yesterday about how analyzing the public and private. And from my point of view, this was the first really analytic map. When we're coming through, since then, I don't really know any analytic map, but I was thinking yesterday about the London map of the beginning of the GIS, which I should have put it also here, which from my point of view, it's the second map. And I'm sure the next practice of evaluation, again, from my point of view, it was Lynch work, which I think most of you heard about him, knows about him. But it was more cognitive. It was more like what people think, how they feel about the city, how they imagine the city. And he asked people to draw, to look at the city and to draw several aspects at the beginning, several aspects that they remember from the city and how they remember it. And he analyzed it, and he ended with five main aspects: paths, edge, districts, nodes, and landmarks, that by them he can understand the image of the city. And he was talking about the image of the city. However, if we look at it, it's more cognitive, it's more, it relates to our imagination, but you can't really work with it. You can't take it and do something with it. You can understand the city, you know the city, you can feel the city, understand what people think about the city, and each person think different about each city, or even on the same city, but you can't really take parameters from here and work with them. And the usual analysis maps that most of the planners, designers are working on, understanding what do we have in the city, where are the buildings, where are the streets, where are all the trees, and so on. But it's all talking about the physical elements and not what's going in between the city, about the quality of the city. So coming to that, sorry, I was raised several questions. First, what are we measuring? I mean, the first question is, what is quality? But this is really a wide and large question. But another question I raised, I was thinking that needs to be discovered is what to measure, the reasons for measurements. I mean, we need to look for the reasons for measure something. What would we like to know about the city? What type of quality or performance? How do we measure it? And where we measure it? I mean, we look at the maps. I mean, is it on the map, 2D maps, 3D maps? We have many options to do it, and each one can give us a different aspect of quality of the city. So when I looked at the theoretical framework, I don't know if most of you know these names, but during 20 years between the 60s and the 80s, I didn't put here Jen Jacobs and oh, I did, but it's not at the beginning. Yes, it's not organized. So for the last, between the 20 years of between the 60s and the 80s, we can see that a lot of theoretical thoughts have been developed. I mean, people started, researchers, and also Jen Jacobs was not an academic, but started to think about quality issues of the city. And we see that through that a lot of theoretical aspects have begun to be developed, to be framed, like the ease of it, I will talk about it, how much area can we see, a lot of issues that Jen Jacobs talked about. Her books talks about many aspects of the city, the sense of security, visibility, eyes on the street, and so on. Lynch about the image of the city, which is like a step from measuring space syntax. I figure out that most of you know space syntax, Bill Hillier, and how to measure accessibility in the city and privacy and more. But it was more theoretical, beginning to understand how to look at it. But if we look forward, we see that additional researchers got into this field of research and started to measure this aspect, mainly because of the jump of technology. The jump of technology happens for research around the mid-90s, and then another jump we can see, and actually I have to forward this table, was around the 2007 when, where's my cell phone? I can see it, it's here. When this was developed, there was another jump. So the technology, and I think for the last 5 years, it's not by every 5 or 10 years, it's like every year, every few months. And when the technology began to be more feasible for using, we see that we have measurements tools, so we can use it. And I think the main theory that really go by this table is a space syntax. That was the theory was developed around the 1980. And if you look now of what the space syntax are doing, they have the tools, they have different tools to analyze different aspects of accessibility, and they really use technology for that. But it's not only for space syntax; it's for additional aspects. So we have the theory that already is here. We have the technology, and now we have additional aspects, which is data. Data was, we talked about it yesterday, is one of the missing aspects for measuring. And for the last, I won't say decade, but 5, even more years, we can have, and we can get to more and more data. The data is more available. And I think if we go forward, we'll have additional data, open data that we can use for measurements. So now the adding value is all of these are basis for developing methods and tools for measuring different aspects of quality in the built environment. So what I'm doing now this was like introduction to show you several tools for measuring diverse quality aspects of the built environment. Part of them I developed, part of them additional researchers developed, and I will start. Here you can see that I won't talk about all of these aspects, and there are of course additional aspects that can be evaluated. And we talked about security yesterday, and I'll show the model that I developed for the last, would say, close to 10 years for measuring security in the built environment. So, as I said, I would like to show you the method for evaluating the sense of security. And I began to get deep into the issue of security while I was involved in EU FP7 project that dealt with security in the built environment. And they asked me to look at the urban environment and to see how to measure security in the built environment. It was a bit difficult because I didn't have a clue how to deal with this, how to look with this of this and which parameters to use. So it was, I'll show you how, in short, how the long story was done. But when we look at the built environment, we see that we have different situations. And in different situations, we see many people or less people, and we don't really know why we have the number of people a lot or less in certain areas. We don't really understand why are people staying in a certain place or in another place that for us looks the same. So we see that there are areas that many people are going through, and if we look at different areas, they are empty of people. And if we look at them, they have light, everything is okay, but no one goes there. And we don't really understand why. If you look at the lower right picture, we can understand it. It's dark, it's night, I wouldn't go there. But if we look at the the middle, it's a lower middle picture, and at the left, we have light, everything is okay, but no one is going there, no one is walking there. It means that it's not only light that makes people feel safe. If you feel safe, you go in a certain area. If you don't feel safe, you wouldn't go there. It means that there are additional parameters that makes you go through a certain area. And if you look at the upper pictures, we see a lot of people. And also, we don't really understand why they walk there. I mean, it goes both ways that we need to understand. So if we look at the literature, there's a lot of books talking about safety and security. We found that there's many books in England. We were lucky, it was written in English, so we could read it. A lot of governmental booklets, they're talking about security. After September 11, we had a lot of, they had a lot of books relating to terror and crime and all that, and talking about a lot of parameters that assist in making safer environments, but they were talking about the safe environment and talking about different parameters, but they didn't talk about how to measure it, how to understand it. It was only locations, pictures, but not how to understand how the environment works. And I have to say also that I'm a planner, I'm a designer, and I'm looking from the planner point of view, how to develop safer places. And first, when I talked about this, when I saw the model, the first question were, well, you know, we have all the police data. We don't need your, tool. And I said, okay, but if we want to develop a new city, which what happens in Israel, we don't have any police data. So you'll have a police data only after the city will be there, the crime will be there, and then what? I would like to develop areas that will be safer before the police come. So here you can see additional situation. I would like to add to what I said before. If you look at the two pictures at the top, you see, let's say, the right side of the street and the left side of the street. And you see people, there are streets that you see people going only on one side of the street, and not on the other one. And one of the parameters is that people don't like to walk in a street beside an empty wall, okay, without any windows, without any shopping windows and all that. With how do you say, Dan Atum? with a sealed wall. They would like to go beside a wall that is three-dimensional, which you can see what's going on beyond it. So can you imagine if you can have a map, that through the map, you will understand what's going on in the city, that where are the safer areas or the less safer areas. This is what I'm talking about, to have a map that will show you where are the bad or good areas of the city. So I won't go into the actual research, but I brought it here to show you that it was actually were based on a real research, that I was looking for what we are lacking and what we are looking for. And I was looking for the gaps between what was available for me, like books, parameters, and it was really books or talking with professional people, but the gap was in the connection between the parameters, in the connections of having everything on the same map. So this is the analysis framework that I developed, and I based myself of data that was available for me to get into it. By the way, you know that the police and the military and everything has additional data, but it's not open to the public. So I was able to search only in data that was open for the public. So this is, I would go through it, but I would like to show you a little bit of the literature that I'm sure that you are aware of. And even when we talk about the mass housing and we see the compounds with the L-shaped buildings, one of the main special aspects of this compound is the security, is eyes on the street. It's not Jane Jacobs, but it's Cooper and Cooper Marcus and Sarkisian that talked about the nature surveillance in a lot of compounds area that were developed during the 50s and the 60s. During this time, you know, kids were down at the park. A lot of mothers, not fathers, on this time were at home watching them from the apartment, but they didn't get down. It was all safe. You know, if one mother is looking or another mother is looking, but there was like a natural surveillance over there. One of the main researchers that I was looking at, it was Jan Gehl. I look at Jan Gehl as the photographer of Jane Jacobs. I mean, she was talking a lot about issues. He's an architect, he showed it. And further, he took it further into the planning. But he showed a situation, like if you look at the situation here, on the right bottom, you see two people are talking and has fence, you know, or on the left, right, people likes boundaries. When we see boundaries, our mind, cognitive mind, we won't go into an area, even if we see a line. This is why we have lines in all the areas outside, but it's in the yards, or if you have a small garden, you put fences so people won't go inside. And then it depends what's the height of the fence. I mean, 1 meter, people can go inside. 3-4 meters, that's makes difference. But a lot of aspect he's talking, if you open his book, he has a very nice book for all of you who doesn't know him. He talks about urban situations in different aspects, also in security, that realize a lot of what happens in our city, and this is a thing that really he did very well. But it's not only them. I'll make the literature review short, and you can see a lot of aspects from different researchers that I picked for, I think for about 2 years. I was looking into a lot of literature and a lot of government books about many aspects that deal with security. For example, in England, they put gravel around the houses. You know why? Because when thieves come and they walk on the gravel, you can hear them. So you have a lot of buildings that has gravel around them, because I couldn't figure out why to put gravel. You know, I knew about this issue, so it's connected to security. Or if we were talking about distance, there is a certain distance when we look at people, I'll talk about distance later, that we feel safe or unsafe. When we go on the street and someone is coming towards us and we look at him, and from a certain point, we understand if he is against us or he likes us. So it's something that we can see. So a distance is an important aspect, and also entrances. As you see, there's one researcher's space syntax research from England that he figured out that there are areas that he measured the connection between a door in the fence and the door of the house in certain areas, and he figured out the which houses were bugged more than others in relation to space syntax, to the this connection between these two entrances. So also, I was looking also at the CCTV and all that, but I put these aside. I know we have all these electronic issues, but I was looking for morphological aspects, because we can put, you know, cameras everywhere, but cameras are, you can have the picture of the thief and you can act after, but I would like the thief not to come to the apartment. I mean, how do you develop morphology that they won't come, or they come less? So I took this out of the system, and also I was looking into additional methods. So when I look at all the parameters that I gathered, I saw that I have three groups of parameters. On the right side, I have parameters that I can measure them, but I need an additional method in order to measure them. If you're looking about sense of ownership, maintenance, management, it's not something that I can take it and measure it. It's something that needs additional method in order to measure it. On the middle side, I have detailed elements that not every time I have a full data in a plan for these detailed parameters, like if we're talking about fences, or if I'm talking about vegetation, not all the plants has this data. So this is like data I can have partly. And on the left side, I had the element parameters that I can have in every plant, and I can measure them. So these are the, most of them I used. So I will forward. So to make a long story short, I after a lot of analysis that we did to different parameters, well, if you look at these parameters, the division for three groups were made after analyzing a lot of parameters. So we came to a decision that we can use 4 parameters together in order to measure security in the built environment. And I have to say that the intersection we measured in 2 different ways. So it was like 5 parameters. I wouldn't get into the exact issue of how we measure it. I would just say that we use GIS tools to measure each parameter separately. We also worked about the scales of how to measure. If we're talking about distances, there's a difference between 5-meter distances or 10 or 20-meter distances. Also proximity. I measured the density of the buildings, not the density of the buildings, the density between the buildings. So this is also one of the issues. And on the right side, you see how the analysis is shown, visualized on the map after using the GIS tools maps. And actually, this is for this workshop. This is like in a wider picture. So what you see now, I want to show you some outcomes of these measurements. Here you see the map of Tel Aviv, but without buildings, without streets. It's a raster map of Tel Aviv after measuring the security during the daytime and the nighttime. If you saw, I have the lights, the street lights of Tel Aviv. I can't use street lights for measuring security during the day, only during the night. So I have to say one thing, I don't have a pointer, but the southern parts of Tel Aviv are really, let's say, 10 years now, they're starting to change, were really bad parts of Tel Aviv. And first, when we measured Tel Aviv, I said, if the lower parts of Tel Aviv will be very good, I can take this tool and throw it away. But you can see here that the lower part of Tel Aviv are really bad. The brown is bad. It's not good for in terms of sense of security. So then we realized that we have something that can work. However, we weren't sure. So we decided, here you see I won't go into the detailed outcomes of the measurement. Here you see the differences between the day and the night. Of course, the night is less secure than the day. But what's interesting, in order to see that what we have is okay, that the tools that we developed really worked, we had to have additional data from other sources, from police or vulnerable data, to see that really what we are thinking, really what's going on. So we have 2 types of data, from the police on the left and from the city of Tel Aviv, the vandalism data. However, I have to say that data from Tel Aviv is like dots that we have from all the vandalism events that occur, and the Tel Aviv is only statistics. They wouldn't let us get the actual, XY data of what they have. But if we go forward and we evaluate together, compare the maps, we see the area that really are close to what we have is what the police data have in relating to the daytime security. But when we look at the vandalism data, it was more related to the security analysis that we did during night. And this was very interesting, that we could compare the night and day and compare them to different data of vandalism. But we did it not only on Tel Aviv, that we say, it's in Israel, we know Tel Aviv. I took also Portland in the United States, And what's interesting, important, and by the way, in security relating in all cities of the United States, we have all crime data open. And open every city, almost every city that you look for, you have the data open on the internet. And furthermore, it's divided into sections like, I don't remember, domestic and car thieves, and all these divided. And we took Portland, we did it, and we see the resemblance in certain area. So this is how, relating to your question, Edmund, yesterday, this is how we measure it. And but this is not the only topic I would like to talk to. I won't go into conclusion. The conclusion is that we can measure the sense of security in the built environment. But I would like to go forward, and I don't have a lot of time. But, yeah, I'll do it fast. I would like to talk about additional issues, and one of the issues is walkability. And as you know, walkability is a topic, an issue that really a lot of researchers measure from different points of view. By the way, there's not one algorithm that measures walkability. They are different. It depends what would you like to know about walkability, but I won't go into it. But walkability is part of accessibility in the city, sustainable moving in the city, which is very important. And it's important not only for walking, in different researchers that they connected walkability to health, to economic benefits, to different additional aspects that has the benefits from walking. This is why governments are promoting walkability. But a little bit about literature review that relates to walkability, and I'm coming back to Yangel. He was looking at walkability in different aspects that belongs to the built environment. Like when you're walking in different areas, there are areas that is very difficult to walk through, like in the middle neglected areas, that people are putting parking their cars where they shouldn't park, or whatever, which is very difficult to walk. Or there are areas, he called it overlooks, that, it's all like a big mess that where you look. And he was talking about the passed out, the areas that people should walk there, but they are not walking there. And there are areas that is very difficult to walk. I like the upper left picture that he put in his book, that only one person can walk in this area, not two together. So it means that there are, like elderly that are going together with another person, they can't walk there. I mean, there are a lot of issues that belongs to walkability that affect the way we walk around the built environment, actually affect the quality of the environment for these people. So measuring walkability comes, as I said, in different ways. There are walk score. I don't know if you know this group. They have it on the internet that you can get inside and see how they measure walkability. I did my postdoc at the Urban Form Lab in Seattle with Professor Mudon, and she was measuring walkability in different aspects in the Seattle area. Here you see how only the maps, how she measures average person walkability. But what's interesting, she found that female and male walk different in the same built environment, and which is for me very interesting, because this affects a lot of things we can plan in this area. If you see that a lot of men or women walk in different areas, you know, the shopping can be different by the issue that you have there. But I would like to go back to what I did with the security, and we decided to measure walkability and security in a certain area in Haifa. I won't get into the measuring the security in Hadar area, but what we did, and we also found the bad area in Hadar neighborhood and good area of security in Hadar neighborhood, and we defined them. But what we did with walkability, we didn't measure it using any tool. We used interviews with people, and we asked them where they go in Hadar, where they feel secure in Hadar. So they were questionnaire, and once they just draw everything. And what was interesting, that we found out that different groups of communities walk different in the same neighborhood. Like as you see here on the left, these are students group. We have students living in this area, and they go in certain streets in Hadar. If you look, there is a Jewish Orthodox community in Hadar, large one. They walk differently in Hadar, and on the right side, people who are coming from all over to work in Hadar. So we see one neighborhood, the different groups of people, different communities, use differently the area by walking. So what we took the maps of Hadar, we analyzed using GIS, these maps that we got. I always talk about the GIS because of this GIS workshop that we have, and type of things that we can analyze using the GIS. We just took all the routes they marked on the maps. They told us where they walk less or more secure or less secure, and we analyzed them together. I won't go into details, but I'll do it. Actually, all of these, everything I show here was published in papers. So everyone who wants to read further, I can send you the papers. And I won't get inside it, but we found several areas that match between the secured routes and unsecured routes and walking areas and non-walking areas. So we had matches between them, but I won't go into details because I don't have a lot of time. Another aspect is visibility. We talked about it also yesterday. And I have to say that there's a lot of research relating to visibility. Also, space syntax relates to visibility, because when Bill Hillier was talking about, I think he was inventing the word sightline. I mean, when we are walking towards something that we see. And he divided the city into segments of walking, but segments that we walk up to the next area that we can see. And this is how we also measure it. But you can see that we can measure the visibility in 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and further. This is really aspect that was research for the last, I think, 30 years and more. One of the main issue that is lying at the basis of these measurements of visibility is the aspect of isovist. Have you heard about isovist or no? I'll tell you, it's very, very easy. first, the researcher that was that defined isovis is Benedict during 1979. He did this and never worked about this. I mean, he has one paper with thousands of citation. He didn't get back to working on isovis, but a lot of additional researchers did. What he did, I'll go forward. It's better understanding the isovis. What is an isovis? When you stand in a certain area, there is a certain polygon that you can see, okay? You can draw a polygon. This polygon has an area and a perimeter. The area and perimeter can be measured, but if I go here, I see a different polygon because I see different, you know, the door is open and there is a small like snitch that I can see the area. So isovis is a polygon area that we can measure and can use it for developing certain areas in the built environment. And I bring here some drawings that Ruth Conroy developed. I don't know if you know her. She's a professor in, I think she's in Scotland now, but she works a lot about the isovis, and by her drawing, you can really understand what is an isovis, what we can see, and how it can be measured, and now take it into planning. I mean, if you can understand everywhere in the environment what you can see, you can imagine how you can continue develop this area. And now, if we look at what was developing in the GIS, ESRI, QGIS, and they all know about each other. The ESRI was developed during the 90s by students of Carl Steinitz. Yes, he done. Carl Steinitz, they all knew about the isovis and all that, but they took it forward into the developing analysis tools. They use the sightlines, all these words and aspects that were developed, but they have tools that you can use. We talked about it, line of site analysis that we can see it. We can know in each 3D areas from which building, what view you can see, which building, you know, is blocking your view. They have a lot of shadow analysis. You have a sightline analysis and a shadow analysis, which are different because you're looking for, you have different questions between sightline analysis and shadow analysis. And here's a shadow analysis with visibility analysis. So we already have these tools. I would like to talk only about privacy, and after that, I'll finish my talk. Privacy is an aspect. I was dealing with privacy in my PhD, how to measure privacy. What is privacy? I mean, it's the opposite of visibility, because, you know, when you're staying at home and you like to see the view, it's very nice, but your neighbors can see you. So you would like to see the view, but you don't want your neighbors to see you. How you develop an urban area that have these two aspects. What I figured out that the main issue that influence privacy, there are a lot of parameters that influence privacy in the built environment, I mean, in the public open space and inside the buildings, but the only parameter that I used was the distance between buildings, between people, between everything. And there are two researchers that really analyze distances. One was Hall in 1966. I don't know if you're aware of him, but he was talking about social distances. I mean, when we talk to another person, we stand in a certain distance. We don't stand very close. We don't stand very far. And he defined these distances, and Yangel took it forward and integrate it into the urban environment. I mean, how you look at distances. But as I said, when you look about privacy, there are a lot of parameters in the built environment that affect the way you feel, if you feel enough private or less private. You have a lot of aspects here. Now, you know, if you go in a certain area and you see shadow and a person stands in this shadow, sometimes you can't see the person. Sometimes the person feels more private when he's in a shaded area. And I won't go also into these different parameters, but I want to show you that there are a lot of parameters that actually we can measure them, we can use them to understand different aspects in the built environment, and also a privacy. And sometimes you see that there are parameters that are good for privacy, good for security, but for different reasons. I mean, they are opposite to each other. So this is the tool. I won't get into it, that I developed to understand the privacy in the built environment, the distances between buildings, what is a good distance, what is not good distance. But I have to say that, as I said before, privacy is like the opposite to security. So you want to feel secured, you want to feel privacy, and you want the visibility. So if you take everything together, this starts to be complex, and you need a higher tool to relate to all of them. But I want to show you from research that was done in one of my courses, that my student that measures everything in Hadar, I did it through a course. There was one student that looked at, they visualize the privacy and security and the built environment, how we feel private or unsecured. And you know, there are different situations for privacy and unsecured. I mean, as I showed you before, the maintenance is difficult. But when do you relate this privacy area and secured area? As part of the interview that we did in Hadar with the student, they asked people where they feel private. I mean, privacy. They feel that they can sit in a place alone, feel secure, and feel they have their own privacy. They can read a book, whatever. So we figured out that these areas are not overlap. Okay, however, they are connected. You have intersection between them. I didn't do anything with this data, but for me, it's interesting for additional research. But sometimes you have aspects that not really overlap, but they connect or integrate in one point that can assist you in developing the built environment. So I think I'll stop because I have additional forward for this issue, but I think it will be too much. And thank you for listening.
Very important for what we are doing.
Yeah, for the
here, but also how we can go forward after doing that. So there are already a lot of ideas, and we can keep on with that.
yes, I think we can discuss We don't have to, you can ask me a question if you would like to, but we can discuss what I saw here later in the workshop. Feel as you like. It's okay here now, it's okay. Yes. Yeah.
For the map of Tel Aviv,
Yes.
the unsafe or safe zones, I saw that it was unsafe regarding the functional or non-functional zones. And I want to ask you if it's really a strong relation between safe, unsafe zones and the functional, non-functional, or it's only the morphology and the
I don't have a clear answer to this.
You had a very unsafe zone near the business center.
Yes, because yes.
It's a monofunctional area.
You're talking about the upper right? Ramat HaChayal is talking about. In Tel Aviv, yes, but the upper side.
No, the next one.
No, he's talking what here. The upper side or the bottom side?
Yes.
This is the lower side. It's yeah, it's a mixed use, but it's not high tech. It's what's interesting. You see the black area, the brown area at the upper side. It's they have high tech also there. So but they have also, you saw it through the police map that it's dangerous. It's not, as Dan said, it's not it's business, but it has a lot of. If you walk there, it's not really. It's not a visual nice area. It's like it's an area that for many years was a very how do you say melacha, Dan? It's more like garage and like how do I say it? It's like a car for cars, not a garage you say for cars. Yeah, services, yes, but from all types. Yes, and it's not big companies, it's small companies, it's self-workers, it's something that is not managed, you know, in everyone is managed its own self.
So it's not about the non-function.
No, but I have to say that this area is starting to change. They know it's a bad area. So like we had a lot of urban renewal in the central area of Tel Aviv, and it's going down. So now, bits by bits, it's starting to change because it's considered a very bad area. A lot of, in this area, a lot of, I forgot the word, Magrim, immigrants, sorry, which are coming to Israel, they go and live there and they switch. You know, every time you have immigrants from different types, and every time they switch, but they always go to this area and no one else. You have not many residents living there, but now all the urban renewal tissue, because it's like all the area is starting to go down in order to make a change. There is a need for a big change there in order to change the security situation. Yes.
Can you show us
Of Tel Aviv? It's you see the yes, it's just above. Just above. Tel Aviv is the center is very wide. Tel Aviv is very walkable, considered safe city, but at night you go to certain areas in this on the south, or also during the day. But it's because of it's a combination between the morphology and the community that lives there, and money, of course. But the morphology like enables it. What I'm saying is it's not that it's not only people, it's also the morphology. I had a conversation with one criminology professor, and he told me that he said, I was looking for someone that tell me that really that there is something in the morphology that enable crime. Because crime, you know, there are certain areas that certain apartments are being robbed and other apartments not. It's because of the morphology. Because in, like when we had a lot of bombs in Israel, in Jerusalem, there were certain areas that more than twice or 3 times bombs were there. So it's something about the morphology, and you need to change the morphology in order to change the possibilities of crime. Crime will happen everywhere, but there are areas that it will happen more. And crime is about management, how you manage. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.